Hey, everybody. It is Eric Green. Thank you for joining me on this week's Tax Rep podcast. I'm calling this How to Speak to the IRS in 30 Seconds. And I know most of you have heard me mention this before, as an intro to some of our other podcasts and on Facebook. But we've always practiced, the IRS kind of what I consider the old-fashioned way, right? We get clients, we get retained, we get on the phone, we would call the IRS, we would ask for transcripts or get a hold or whatever we're going to do. Well, about a year, it was a year ago, the New England IRS Rep Conference last year at Foxwoods, we had a new exhibitor, Call ENQ, who I'd never heard of. And they were offering a way to call the IRS and get through in under 3 minutes. And again, I never, frankly, being at the conference and being as busy as I am, I never really paid much attention to it, but my staff did. So a few months after the conference, I finally get one of my staff people. I'm on the road speaking at AICPA, I think. And she called and she said, "Remember Call ENQ?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, they exhibited and you can get to the IRS in under 3 minutes. We'd like to try it." And I'm like, "Well, how much does it cost?" They said, "Well, they were offering it was an offer of like 200 minutes for $19.95." I said, "Sure, for $20, go ahead, try it." For my staff to then call me back in Vegas and sing praises, I was like, okay, I got to go look at this. It is an unbelievable service. We now use it here at the firm. And when I tell you how much money we're going to save, I will get into that. But it's unbelievable. So I end up emailing the owner and founder, Andrew Valiente, who is on with us today. Andrew, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Eric.
No, I mean, I don't tend to get excited about stuff like this, software, whatever. Like, okay. This really, it does, this technology, and it is patented technology. This technology really is changing the way not only we practice, most of my members have been signing up. And I can tell you, if you were to go into Tax Rep and you go to the forum, what you're hearing from our members is everybody singing the praises of this. It is unbelievable. So Andrew, first of all, again, thank you for joining us. I'm thrilled that you can make time to do this. Now, you obviously are the founder. You are an MIT trained engineer.
That's right. Yeah, I got my master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT in 2005.
And you got into calling the IRS. I just find that both humorous and fascinating. So for those people who are listening who don't know, can you tell us what is Call ENQ?
Okay, so Call ENQ, it's a software as a service, and we do one thing only and do it really well, and that's to get the caller connected to an IRS agent in less than 3 minutes, and then we avoid all the crazy disconnects. And it's about reducing the absolute whole time you have to wait from hours, whatever it is, to just a couple minutes. That's what we do.
So if you're listening and if you don't recognize the big deal that this is, we have staff who literally a big part of their job was to get the power of attorney, get on the phone, and call. And because you didn't want to be on the wait, the hold, we would try to squeeze as many taxpayers in on every call. And they're really only supposed to help you with 2 or 3. And we'd be begging for them to do the 4th or the 5th. Because, we do a fairly high volume. We have a lot of clients. This is, and I have to tell you, Andrew, the first time I tried it, and if you're listening, you say under 3 minutes. I think it was 5 seconds. I mean, they were there. I mean, they picked up. In fact, they picked up so quickly, I didn't have the file. I was like, "Oh, ma'am, I'm sorry. Hold on, I'm grabbing the file now," because I really didn't expect it to be that quick. And the truth is, when my staff told me about it, and this is probably why I didn't really think about it. It sounds almost too good to be true. So being as busy as I am, hence I ignored it. But for the audience who's never used this, can you walk them through the experience of using ENQ?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So the classical way of calling the IRS, you need to call them. So you dial, and then you have to listen to the hold music. Most likely you'll be put on hold. It can be like an hour. And then sometimes you can get a drop call or a disconnect. The IRS calls this a courtesy disconnect. I don't know why they call it courtesy, but they'll disconnect the call, and then you have to call again, and you get no credit for that time that you waited. Now, with Call ENQ, it is a completely different experience. It's very much like the Disneyland Fast Pass, where you don't have to wait in a long queue. You just take the short line and you're right in.
Yep.
So the experience through Call ENQ is, instead of calling the IRS, you call the Call ENQ number, and then we give you our spot in line. The magic behind it is that even before you called, NQ was queuing calls in line, waiting for the IRS, for the hour before you even called. So when you call, NQ probably has a call that has already waited, let's say 59 minutes. So there's only that 1 minute left. So when you call the NQ service, we're like, okay, well, we'll just give you this spot. That call has already waited for 59 minutes. The whole time is about an hour. So your estimated wait time is 1 minute. And then boom, there you go. You get connected in 1 minute or 30 seconds or whatever it turns out to be.
Yeah, no, it is amazing. And I got to tell you something. I love telling this story where, so Fred Schindler, who is a friend of mine, was the director of IRS collection policy at the time. He's the director of collection policy within the Office of Chief Counsel. And so Fred and I are speaking at the ABA tax meeting down in Boca. And afterward, there's a reception. So he's there. My wife comes with me. Why, Andrew? Because it's Boca, so why not? So she comes with me. Now, what I would do when my kids were little, Andrew, I'd go, I have to leave to get them. Well, I'm not done yet. And of course, the best time to call the IRS was always at 5 o'clock. You get the West Coast. So I would grab my kids, get home, 4 little kids with the backpacks and the snow and the lunch boxes, whatever, drag them all in the house. I immediately would call the 800 number, put it on speaker, so we'd have that music, right, playing through the lower half of our house for about an hour if you're lucky, until somebody picked up, and then I could, still deal with what I needed to deal with. So we're down in Boca. I'm telling you this story for a reason. My wife actually, and we've known Fred a long time, Dina, my wife, says to Fred, can you get them to change the music on the hold? Fred's like, what? And she's like, because I have to listen to this music every night, sometimes even into dinner. Can you get them to change the music? And Fred's like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. They've never changed the music. Well, now, because of this, I'm never on hold long enough to listen to the music, which is just a big bonus. And I mentioned, when I told my wife I had you coming on to interview you, she said, well, wouldn't that have been good like 10 years ago? I'm like, yeah, it would have been. So what led you from MIT engineer to Call ENQ? Like how did you get the idea to come up with this?
Well, it came about because I had a tax problem. I'm not in the tax industry, but I have worked overseas for a bit. I worked in Singapore for 6 years for a financial firm, and then I moved to London, and I'm a U.S. citizen. And so in the tax year 2013 is when I had my tax problem. I had income from 3 different countries, and my former company merged, and then I moved, and forms were sent to my old addresses, and then corrections were sent to the old addresses. And in the very end, my return was like 300 pages, and I filed 3 times. I had to file my original return and then 2 amended returns, because new documentation kept coming in, and it was being sent to the wrong country. So it took like a long time to get everything settled. And every time I had to refile my amended return, that had to trigger like a phone call to the IRS to be like, okay, I'm just going to make sure that you got the new return, and this is what's different, and just make sure things are fine. And it was important to me because the first return, or actually after the first 2 returns showed that I owed the IRS, like 4 figures. And then after the second amended return, I had a 5-figure refund. So it went from owing a lot to being owed a lot more.
Right.
And the IRS, we're backlogged. We'll if you just sent that in, it could take a couple months to process. So call back in 3 months or 6 months. Now to call back, and they're like, we're in tax time right now. You need to call back in 3 to 6 months. Anyway, those phone calls, well, in 2013, I guess it would be in 2014 for 2013 tax year. Anyway, in a 2-week period, I spent like 30 hours on hold with the IRS trying to just resolve this as it happened and at that time. And that was just life draining. I had less time zone options because I was calling from Europe.
Yep.
And it was just, I was just pulling my hair out, and I would get disconnected, international call, and then have to call again. And I just, I was losing my mind. I'm like, man, I would pay to resolve this.
What's the saying? Necessity is the mother of all invention.
That's right. Necessity is all invention. So I'm like, wow, this is just awful. I would pay to get this done. So I'll skip to one story, then I'll come back. Eventually, my tax situation did get resolved. What had happened is when I filed my second amended return, the IRS thought that the second amended return was a duplicate of the first amended return. And so they didn't process it until 4 years later.
Oh.
But eventually that went through, and then it was resolved, and I got my refund check. So back to the story. I had this tax issue, this is 2014. I spent about 30 hours in hold in 2 weeks, and I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing I can do. I have to call back in 3 or 6 months. So life went on, and for life circumstances, I ended up moving back and forth between the U.S. and Europe a couple times, and I kept quitting jobs to move each time for personal circumstances. And then through all that turmoil, I'm like, well, this is unsustainable. Like I'm losing, or like it's so expensive to move, and I have to, my career is now, and it's quitting so many jobs in a row is just not good for it. So I'm like, okay, I need something I can do I can do anywhere, or I can, I'm good at technology, so let's do a software thing and something I can do from anywhere. And so like any entrepreneur, when you want to kind of build a company, you ask yourself, well, the best way to do that is to solve a problem. So I'm like, okay, well, what problems have I had that I think I can solve? So I was thinking, like, oh my goodness, this IRS hold time thing, that was just atrocious. And I was like, if I'm willing to pay for it, there's probably other people willing to pay for it. And there's this whole other tax industry that will probably, there's probably a market there. So I went, I got my computers and bought some books and started kind of going at it. And it took a long time. It took like 2 years to figure out. And then after that, I had to learn marketing after that. But it's been a long, long journey. And now we have hundreds of customers who are pretty thrilled that their productivity is like through the roof.
Andrew, you're talking to one of them, and the first month we used it, Amanda in our office. And if you're listening to the podcast and you come to the conference, you've met Amanda. She's speaking again this year. She's an EA. She is fantastic. She's the reason why our office runs the way as smoothly as it does run is because of Amanda. So we've calculated roughly. We think we're going to save about 50,000 of billable time, and that's not a joke. But now we're on the phone all the time. But it really, it's a no-brainer for those people who've got to call the IRS. And I'm just fascinated that after that experience, you decided to turn this into a business. You know, why?
Yeah, well, I looked at the problem and I'm like, well, there has to be an opportunity here. And then I looked at my skill set as well, and I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. So my background, prior to this venture, I spent 10 years in high frequency trading. So in that industry, I would program a computer that would listen to the live, let's say, stock prices from the exchange, and then do all this math and algorithms, and then try to send orders to the exchange to do a price arbitrage for a profit. And so I'm like, well, that's interesting. This Call ENQ thing it's kind of similar. It's like, well, it's not an exchange, but it's a call center, and I'm not receiving stock data, but I'm receiving like hold music data. And then I'm not sending buy and sell orders, but I'm sending calls. So it's kind of similar. And then all the kind of engineering behind it of like the mathematics and artificial intelligence and algorithms and like everything that I was trained for applied. And all of my 10 years of experience uniquely prepared me to solve this problem. So and at the very end, I was awarded with a U.S. patent for this innovation, which was pretty spectacular. I felt like I have a master's degree from MIT, but this project felt like it was like PhD heaviness, and then at the very end, my patent was like my thesis. It had to be very technical. Anyway, a quote comes to mind to kind of summarize this process. It's from Winston Churchill. It says, to each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they're figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for which could have been their finest hour. So to me, like I was able to take my 10 years of trading experience and find a unique problem that I was uniquely qualified to solve, and it was very difficult, but in the end, it was rewarding.
Well, and what's interesting is this wasn't easy. I got to tell you, for the members who are listening to this, I've sent out stuff, Andrew, very similar kind of how do you build a pyramid? Brick by brick. It takes work. Whatever it is, Call ENQ, building, Jeff and I, a $3.5 million practice in 5 years. It takes work. It's not easy. No one just floats to the top. And I would urge people listening, whatever you're working on, but if you're listening to this, you're probably working on your representation practice. It's there and it'll come. It just takes consistent, disciplined application of work. But it will happen. No, I think the story is, it's fascinating that the tax problem led you to realize, hey, there's a need here. And, to put in 2 years of programming work to try to sort this out and get it to work and get a patent for it it really is a tremendous success story. Now, if I could ask you, what does the IRS think about this?
Oh, well, I haven't had any official communication from them, but we do see ourselves as a partner. There's a saying that says it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission. So I went and read the law very carefully to make sure that it was within the bounds of the law. So then I went ahead, and I do see NQ as an unofficial partner, right? We bring their urgent cases to them faster. The ones that are more desperate or willing to pay, or they want it to resolve now, we help facilitate that. And as an American, it's very much in line with free enterprise, right? It's a solution that solves a problem and that people are very willing and happily to pay for.
Yeah, no. And here in our office, I mean, like once Amanda was sold, well, quite frankly, that means the firm is sold. So, I mean, I am a very big proponent of, Sir Richard Branson's thing is, you take care of your people, they'll take care of the customers. And, so if Amanda's taken care of and she's happy, then we're all happy. And we, so we signed up immediately once we realized what you had here, and it's been terrific. And like I said, in the few months we've been using it, it's conservatively 50,000. I think we're going to save in billable time. And so everyone does know we have partnered with you. There is a special offer, which you have offered to our members, which I really appreciate. I will put the link, by the way, below in the description. But you can try this, 200 minutes for $19.97. All right, which is, I got to be honest with you, is a no-brainer. All right, 200 minutes. All right, that's over 3 hours of time for $20. And Andrew, thank you for doing this. It'll let our users, our listeners, our members try this out, kind of realize what they've got here. And like I said, it really is kind of a no-brainer. So can you explain to everyone who doesn't know what is included with Call ENQ? Like which lines do you call? Like what is it? What is everything that it does?
Okay, so our service is tailored to tax practitioners, and we offer 8 IRS departments where you can skip the whole time and get through very quickly. They are the practitioner priority service, specifically the individual and business accounts or business lines. ACS collections, also individual and business. We also support the lien line, the automated underreporter, and there's one other which slips my mind.
Automated underreporter, lien line, practitioner priority, ACS. I think those are the big ones, to be honest with you. Now, so I know you've offered the trial. How much does it cost after the trial?
So our plans start at $49 a month, and they'll be for 250 minutes a month. And that's time on the IRS line, which is it's talk time. The time starts when we connect you to the IRS and ends when you disconnect the call. So we don't charge you for the time that you skip. That's where the value is. However, that it's not very transparent to the customer, but what is transparent is how long they're on the line. So that's what we charge for. And then we're very generous if there's like a disconnect, or if you have to wait longer than the 3 minutes, then we discount what we would charge you in those cases.
All right. Yeah, no, and I do think when the members try this, if you can get through and avoid an hour on the phone and the hang up, because I got to tell you, Andrew, one of the big issues is you get that hang up or the disconnect, or whatever they call it, the courtesy disconnect, whatever it is. And I'm with you. I don't follow that where the courtesy is there. The discourtesy of the hang up, the cutoff. Who am I charging for that? I mean, it's not my fault. On the other hand, the client, I mean, how much is the client willing to pay for you to try to get a hold or whatever you're trying to do? So it really does put you in an awkward position here. If I'm going to get hung up on, at least I know in 30 seconds. But the reality is so far we've gotten none. I mean, we get right through to a human being. So it really has been terrific. And given how much money we're going to save, it really is a no-brainer. And truthfully, we're value billing this now because of, it used to be we would charge our time. Now we can get this done so quickly, we're literally just value billing it. So whereas before there could have been an hour hold, and they transfer you to this department, that department, wherever, and so you could have 400, 500, spent on phone calls, calling back, whatever. Now we can value bill, $300, let's say, So the service is virtually paid for. And the client's getting, they're paying for what they're getting, right? You took care of this, $300 for you to go and get first-time penalty abatement and a streamlined installment agreement set up is a no-brainer for them. And for us, sometimes Amanda can spend all of 10 minutes on the call, 15 minutes, and we're done. I mean, it has now become a moneymaker for us to call and do these simple things over the phone with the IRS, whereas before, we dreaded it. And I'd rather send letters. Why? Out of sight, out of mind, and I don't have to waste time on the phone. Call ENQ has literally just changed that. So, look, I know I've kept you over time that I promised. I will put that special offer down for all of the listeners who are listening. And Andrew, thank you. I appreciate your coming on. You are exhibiting again this year at the New England Rep Conference. We will be handing out your materials. So if you're listening and you're going to be at Mohegan Sun, you will get the Call ENQ information there as well. But otherwise, go click on the link, check it out. I am telling you, it will change the way you practice. And so with that, Andrew, listen, thank you very much for doing this. And I will probably be dragging you back on again for some more follow-up. It's a fascinating product. And frankly, it's amazing. It really is. I don't say that about many things. This is totally cool.
All right. Thank you, Eric. It's my pleasure.
All right. And everybody, listen, thank you for listening in. And I will catch you on next week's podcast. Have a good one.